Hey there everybody and welcome to the show. My name is Carmen and we have a really exciting page in store for you today. We're going to be looking at El Morro, which is in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's an old fort built by Ferdinand and Isabel across the street from where I was born. And I took a series of beautiful pictures in color, but then I enhanced it by turning them into old sepia photos. We're going to use some dimensional paint here in a relief, and we're going to age it. We're going to use a great tag book, some journaling, some really fun techniques, and cool textured paper. So hang on, because here we go. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start out with a 12 by 12 cardstock. This particular color happens to be called caramel, and I'm really going for kind of earthy, organic textures and tones in this design. Then I used a 12 by 12 piece of paper designed by Karen Foster, and it's called Parched Leather, and all I did is I took off a 2-inch strip and justified it to the right, so I'm kind of leaving a little bit of margin over here to the left. Then I found this other wonderful paper by Karen Foster. It's burlap, and I really was drawn to it because I'm going to be using burlap later on in the design. Then I'm also going to justify this paper all the way to the right, leaving a 1/2 inch border on the top and on the bottom. So now that we have all of our papers laid out, what we're going to do now is add our journaling and our title to our page. And what I did is I found a really cool old world kind of font on my computer, wrote out ancestry, heritage, culture, and pride, and then I wrote a little blurb. I wanted to frame them and kind of format them, but I didn't want them to be exact squares on squares. I wanted to kind of allow the paper to kind of breathe through and allow the textures to come through. So what I did is on the first box, I cut out 2 other smaller little pieces of cardstock in ginger and glued those together, and kind of in an odd way, because again, I don't want everything to feel really symmetrical. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that one in here on the top. And then I took my little journaling box, which I wrote a little thought about the building and having been born across the street, and I framed it again, but slightly differently off skew. I do not want this to be all perfect boxes, boxes, boxes. So I put a tab just on one side of it. The reason why I did that is we've got the caramel going into this fabulous, even darker caramel color, the ginger, the burlap, and the parched leather, so that we're not losing all of the layers of the paper. I didn't want to just keep layering and not be able to see through the paper. So there we go, we're all set with our journaling and our title on our page. Now we're going to move on to actually creating our relief. Now we need to create a base for the relief, and so what I wanted to do is find something that would be stable, hard. So I took a 4x4 piece of foam core, and then I cut out a 4x4 piece of brown cardstock, because when I take my 5x5 piece of burlap, and I'm going to glue all those pieces together just like that. I've got here the 4x4 glued with the cardstock, and now I'm going to glue the burlap to it because I want brown to come through the burlap instead of black to come through the burlap, because it just didn't go with my color scheme, and it's all about color schemes. So I'm going to center that 5x5 piece of burlap right on top of my foam core and cardstock, and I glued that down, and believe it or not, this craft adhesive really holds down the burlap well. All of the edges on my relief square or my relief tile actually have a fray to them. So what I did is I pulled just a few of the threads away from the corner, about 4 or 5, and notice how I have there a nice little edge. Moving on, I've got one here. Again, I've got my foam core, my brown, and my burlap. I've cut all the edges around, and I pulled it all frayed, so I've got a little bit of an old world look happening here. And what I'm using is the Delta Texture Magic dimensional paint. And for this particular project, I chose 2 colors that again lend themselves to the earthiness and the organic. You want to take the dimensional paint and really knead it, because you want to make sure that everything inside is really blended well and all of the colors are mushed together and that it's all nice and ready to go. We're just going to take a quick dab, squeezing the tube, I would say about the size of a quarter. And in this case, I am using a sculpting knife. But you can, of course, use a plastic knife. You can also use a small spatula. And what we're going to do now is just quickly, like I'm spreading peanut butter, just spread it onto the page. And we're going to let that set aside and let it dry. And I happen to have one that's dry right here. Isn't that exciting? And what we're going to do now is I've got the Cashmere Delta Texture Magic Dimensional Paint, and I'm going to mush that just to make sure that it's all kneaded and ready to go. Just going to take a little bit of this and literally the size of a dime. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spread that one out over it to kind of give it texture and a contrast and give us a little bit of a background. So now I've got two colors going on here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create our relief. And how do you do that? You do it with a stencil. I found a small stencil of which I really like the design, and the design of it actually kind of replicates the front crest of the building. But I don't want to use this whole size, and obviously if I'm going to put this on here, it doesn't fit. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to isolate the design, or the part of the design that I don't want to use, by using tape. Blue painter's tape works the best. So I want to make sure that I'm centering that to where I want it to go. And I'm going to take another little piece of tape and put a little piece here and put a little piece here. That's going to hold it in place for me while I continue to work. We're going to go back to the Cashmere Dimensional Paint, just placing a little bit of a dab right in the center, I'd say about the size of a dime. Using our same sculpting knife, evenly and quickly spread that over the top of the design. Now just lift that up, and there we have a beautiful relief image. And now what we're going to do is, as you can tell here, there's not a lot of contrast in the design. I'm almost losing the relief. I don't see it because I put the same color tone on top of each other. So what we want to do is enhance it and bring it to life. And what I'm using here is a glaze in a kind of a brown umber, already pre-mixed. And as you can tell, I'm going ahead and putting all of this all over everything, including a little bit onto my burlap, because I want to age the burlap as well. Then with a napkin, I've got all this on here right now, and you see how you can't really see the design at all? It's like gone. So now watch this. We're just going to take our napkin and slowly and easily rub it right off. And now look how the design comes to life. The stain that I put on it, the glaze will darken as it dries, so it'll even enhance. And what it does is it stayed in the low points of the relief, and the high points of the relief have hardly any of the glaze on it at all. So now we're going to set that to the side. And now we've got the last element of our scrapbook page, which is the tag book by Kay & Company. And the beautiful thing about this is it comes already made exactly like this. And I just didn't want to leave just a blank book there. So I wanted to add a little bit of dimension, a little bit of color, as well as a little bit of a style. So I know sometimes you guys are used to using ink for foam stamps. This time I'm actually going to use a little bit of the same glaze. What we're going to do is with the brush lightly and evenly, just brush it right over the top of your design. You don't want to gunk it up too much, because obviously then you don't get a nice clean image. Just put that on the top there. And then what you want to do, just to ensure that you get a crisp, clean image, is just test it out really quick. Get all the excess paint off of your stamp. And then I'm going to take it over the side here and actually put it on the page. Pressing down really, really well, lifting up, and there we have our beautiful image. The same thing again on the other corner. And let that go. And like I said before, this glaze will darken a little bit as it dries. And so now what we have left are the last two details of the tag book, which is the title, as well as a little picture that I cut out that I wanted to put right on the front, which is actually the crest of the building. Just a little bit of adhesive on that, and then center that so it kind of falls right in the middle there. And then just a little bit of glue here. Quickly put that onto my edge of the book here. Glue that down. So there you have it, our tag book. We've put our little name on it as well as pictures, and you can go ahead and put whatever pictures you want on the inside in any way you want to lay it out. So there you have it, the great dimensional paint for a plaster relief, amazing textured paper, as well as a beautiful tag book that only enhances your project. I hope you guys take all of these ideas and make them your own for your next scrapbook page. Take care, and we'll see you guys really soon. Bye-bye.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.